View from the Gutters, Episode 8. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Joe the Barbarian, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section of this podcast, skip ahead to 4305.
Hello, and welcome back to episode 8 of Oprah Winfrey's Comic Book of the Month Club.
You've already ruined this intro.
I've already ruined it.
Hopefully
Also,
they can't hear that on the podcast, though.
If Andrew hadn't said anything, you'd never know. You would never know that my phone rang.
That I ruined it.
Also, you said welcome back to episode 8.
Well,
We
I
haven't
was
started episode 8 yet.
implying that we had started previously to us recording.
It's just a bad intro.
It's a bad intro. What can I say? I don't do it.
I gave you a chance.
I'm more of a color man. I'm not. You know what? I should have. I'm not Roddy. I'm sorry.
You gotta pull your weight sometimes.
You're not even Howard Cosell.
I could be. I can't be Howard. No, I'm not. I'm more Marv Albert. I'm more Marv Albert.
I'm also more like people that I know of.
I totally heard of Marvel.
He was a basketball commentator.
Yeah,
He did color commentary on basketball. Whatever.
Is this a California thing?
No, it's not. Marv Albert, he's got a head and a jar on Futurama.
Well,
He's the one talking about what promises to be a by-the-book competition between...
Right. I'm aware of the reference you're making.
Yes.
It's incredibly dated, but I'm aware of it.
Well, and Howard Cosell isn't dated...
Well, I was also referencing that episode. I just couldn't remember Marv Albert's name.
Okay, all right. Well,
But that's on me.
As long as we're both. When I think of Howard Cosell, I always think of Better Off Dead.
I don't even know what that is.
It's John Cusack.
Yeah.
John Cusack, he's got a Camaro, and he always races these two Asian guys, and the guy in the passenger seat of the Asian's car always always like, and welcome here today, sports fans.
yeah.
Is that the one where he draws in the notebook and it comes alive?
alive,
I
yeah,
saw
exactly.
the beginning of that on Comedy
Note.
Central once.
That's good.
I didn't care for it.
I love that movie.
I like Death Note. That's a good one.
That-
That's the movie we're talking about, right?
No.
No, damn.
Also, you're fired. You're just, I'm not, did you see how I turned away from you? I'm no longer.
This is a good start. We're off to a good start today.
We are.
right.
So we're here, I guess, introductions now.
Yeah,
I guess.
probably get that part on the checklist.
We should. I'm the loud guy. I'm Joe Preti.
Yay.
Yay!
Andrew Chard here.
And I'm Tobiah Panshin.
It's just the three of us today.
It
It's so
is.
lonely.
I think we're a good bunch. I think we do the work of 6 people.
I think this is kind of our D squad. I'm just,
Why are we going to count out the A squad? Like, really?
we're saving those guys for later podcasts.
We are. For when we really... If you can listen to us, then...
Yeah.
Well, no, because the A squad are the guys who go in and they get killed right away.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they send the B squad in to find out what happened, and the B squad gets captured.
Right.
And then the D squad are the guys who have to go in and save everybody else's ass.
Right, because the C squad are eating donuts.
Because the shit has hit the fan.
Yeah.
And we need the last chancers.
Yeah,
Right.
we are. Yes.
That part,
I like
that part is good.
That's a good part. That's a good part. So what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about Joe the Barbarian.
Yeah, that was our pick this week.
Which is a biographical tale of me
No.
actually growing up. No, it's not. I'm much cooler than this guy.
Actually, I would hope that you're much cooler than the guy in this comic, because he's not very cool.
He's super passive. He's like the most passive main character ever in a book.
Does he actually do anything, or does he just follow along the entire story?
Pretty much. I mean, he is the manifestation of everything, right? It's all coming out of his head.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's...
So he is like super passive in the fact that the character that is going through the stories, he's just kind of watching the story unfold around him. But it's all coming out of his head. It's kind of basically a drug-filled vision, except without the drugs. He just happens to be diabetic.
He's hypoglycemic. He's a diabetic shot.
These bullies have like taken his candy.
Yeah.
And he has no blood sugar. He falls asleep in the house, wakes up, starts hallucinating, kind of goes on this drug-filled adventure.
was I the only person that wasn't disappointed that he did not chase the bullies on Falcor at the end of this?
I was a little bit disappointed that didn't happen.
You know you wanted that to happen.
This is already a very blatant ripoff of the Never-Ending Story.
Well, I feel
he should have just gone all the way.
He doesn't have a horse.
He doesn't have a horse, no.
There's no princess.
I'm pretty sure that there's a
different-
horse in this story somewhere.
I don't think he rides the horse ever.
What it really reminded me of, if I could make another obscure reference, was the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant Unbeliever, except I like Joe a lot more. Maybe that's why I was able to enjoy it, because... don't bother reading those books because they're awful.
Well, I haven't read them, so I'll continue to not read them. And
not
I will
reading
continue to actually be incredibly disappointed in this story, even if it is better than the one that I haven't read.
It's better than when you haven't read.
Yeah, it's kind of... And the thing I like about it, I mean, it is, like, kind of off, but I think I like about it is it's like it's constantly drawing off of things that we've all seen before, you know, Lord of the Rings and Never-Ending Story, and it like
I think
knows it.
I think that's the thing that I didn't like about it.
And it tells you that it knows it when the evil villain makes a speech that includes the words etc. and like before. And you know, like, oh, what is the exact wording that he uses? He's like, it's good. It's a clever part in the story, I thought.
Well, I hope that there's at least one clever part.
Where is that? There it is. Yeah, etc. Traditional rules apply.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's basically like, this is just your classic adventure story. You know what you're in for.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's great because it's Grant Morrison, you know, doing his weird stuff. But to me, this book is not really a Grant Morrison book. This is a Sean Murphy book.
I feel like Grant Morrison was really phoning this one in.
Well, I felt like it was appropriate. I mean, the story, yes, it's something we've seen before, but I feel like it's Grant Morrison in the way that this is the fantasy that some kid that's 2 steps away from diabetic coma would have.
Right.
Because it is filled with those pop culture references.
Right.
It's filled with those things
His
that are
own
so
action
far
figures inhabit the world.
Yeah, I know,
Like,
right?
And that's fine, but I think the problem that I had with this, in contrast to the Never-Ending Story, in the Never-Ending Story, I really felt like that world had a concrete reality of its own, and I cared about the people who inhabited it. And in this, it's made very, very clear that this is not a real world. This is him having hallucinations.
Right.
None of this is real. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't care about it.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I feel it's I Kill Giants, right? It's therapy through fantasy.
Right.
Except I do feel that I Kill Giants had a much more satisfying and powerful conclusion.
It did it way better than this.
So yeah, I mean, I agree. This is not The Invisibles, which you should read immediately.
Right.
They just released an omnibus, and it's amazing. This isn't Doom Patrol. This isn't All-Star Superman. This isn't
even Animal
this
Man.
isn't even Animal Man.
It's not really Grant Morrison.
It's not.
It's
It's
Sean
not.
Murphy. You know, this book is like really is a feast for the eyes.
Actually, you know what?
Oh god.
Okay,
yeah.
the art is...
I just opened a single, just flip to any page, and it's amazing. There's a Batman action figure getting his head popped off while Lobo jumps over the top of
And
him.
Picard shoots his phaser.
Yeah, you can't
art
really
is
go
amazing.
wrong with that. I mean,
Actually,
I think
the art is the
art
good
is
part of the comic. And
absolutely fantastic.
actually, in every sense, the other Grant Morrison thing that this reminds me of is We Three.
yeah.
Because the art was great,
Right.
and the story was crap.
It makes you feel some stuff, but it's like it does it by being really obvious.
Well, yeah,
you know?
I think
And
it's like, oh, it's a puppy and a kitty and a
And
bunny.
you're
and
gonna
of
be
course
sad.
You're
Of
gonna
course
be
you'll be
sad
sad,
because it's
right?
awful, right?
Right?
But
Yeah. No, it does
it really
blatantly.
feels like the outline of a story. Like Grant Morrison pitched this idea, and they're like, "Great, we'll just take this pitch and we'll turn it into a comic story." But we're not going to actually add anything. We're just going to take these rough details.
I wonder how similar to like the Marvel method they worked, where like Grant told Sean Phillips like this is kind of what's going to go on in that issue, and then he drew some cool stuff, and they adapted the dialogue to it. I wonder if that went on at all.
Yeah.
Because it really is driven by the visuals first. I feel like.
absolutely.
It's like
Incredibly
the panels are all very interesting. They're very dramatic, especially near the end when there's just the epic battles are happening between these like cool looking Neverworld monsters and these awesome action figures. A lot of whom are like really obviously DC characters, but also you've got G.I. Joes and their Transformers.
Oh yeah, you've got Grimlock. You've got
Grimlock is
from,
in there.
kicking some ass in there
You
somewhere.
got Picard and some Star Trek guys. You've got a lot of you've got some. Yeah, they changed the name of some of them. There's The original, the Transformer that shows
Oh
up
yeah. No, they totally
is
did.
like it's not Optimus Prime. It's Ultimus Alpha.
Yeah.
There's some clever stuff in here. I like this book a lot. I mean, this isn't Grant Morrison's best work.
It really does feel like an outline. It feels like a rough draft. I think that he could have done so much more with it. It's a good seed of a story, but it's not a good story in and of itself.
Yeah.
The good part is really the art, and the art is very, very good, especially the character design.
Yeah, it's really solid.
And not the characters that he's making reference to, because obviously those are being drawn to a preset standard.
Right.
But I can't remember the name of the girl in the story. It's like,
it's like ZYXY.
something like that. I thought that her character design was really nice.
And her tribe of people, like the science guys that are all walking around with like these rat skeleton heads on.
Yeah.
And you look at them originally and you're like, oh my god, these are like creepy villains. Something's wrong. You find out that no, these are the guys that are gonna help them. Really cool character design on those guys. The Iron Knight looks really cool. The villains, the kind of the Nazgul ripoff villains, look awesome. Jack the Rat, looks very
amazing.
cool. Is really reminiscent of other times we've seen like anthropomorphized warriors or whatever.
He reminded me of something out of like Redwall.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Jack was my favorite character. I think he was the best written character in the whole thing.
He's the protagonist to me.
Absolutely.
Well,
it becomes more about his conflict with his brothers.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And that's the thing, is that Joe really has no character growth throughout the story. He doesn't learn anything, but Jack does. He changes, he grows, he overcomes his limitations.
I feel like
coming out of not Jack's head. What's the kid's name? Joe. It's coming out of Joe's head, but he's just like watching it. You know, it's like a movie that he's a part of, but also writing at the same time. You know, he's like super passive.
I find myself wondering if that's the point. This is it's therapy through fantasy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I overall I enjoyed the book. It's not my favorite thing. I feel like when I get to the end of most Grant Morrison books, I'm kind of like, I understand what he was doing, or I have no desire to understand what he was thinking when he wrote this. And it's very black and white there. This, I would very much like to know, what were you, I mean, is this supposed to be like, are these characters taking on aspects of Joe? Is Joe acting through them? Because it doesn't feel that way. It's not conveyed that way.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, that connection is totally lost. If he is, then, you know, if that connection was made, then it would be a much more powerful story.
Yeah, I think that it's just kind of him, you know, watching these events unfold, and he's kind of like gleaning some information from it. Yeah. But in the same way, like, he's also not super active, so he's just kind of like the story is called Joe, but it's you know, it's not really about him.
Yeah.
At all.
I feel like Grant Morrison read The Sandman and then read I Kill Giants and was like, those are really cool ideas. We should do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's I agree with both of you. It is beautifully illustrated and does not fall into the 50 million splash page hole that a lot of modern comic books do. So when you see a splash page, it has impact.
Yeah.
It has emotional content.
There's a lot of like 8 and 7 panel pages in here that are just like packed with dialogue and information.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the later sections in the book where there are big splash pages, it pays off really well.
Absolutely.
It's not your modern Marvel comic or DC comic where every single page is a splash page, so they have no impact at all.
Absolutely.
You know, you're just looking at one panel per page comics.
Yeah.
You can't tell much story in them. They look great, they're cool, they're good for the artist, but
yeah, they convey no information. And they're easy. They're easy.
Yeah.
It's like, I couldn't think of anything, so Batman kicks these 2 guys on 2 pages. It's like, no, like, think about what's going on here. Like, give us something more.
And I hate to, like, think about it this way, but a lot of times I think about Marvel and DC as, like, beginner comics, you know? They're like comics for beginners. Like, that's what I read when I was a kid. And then you get to graduate to better stuff. And there's a lot of people that just never graduate out of Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
And that's why they hate Marvel and DC so much, is because they keep trying to read it like it's a book for them. And it's not really for them anymore. They've mastered the art of reading a comic.
Well, and I think
they need to go look for something else.
I think it's largely due...
Part of it is just the genre of Marvel and DC, because they are almost exclusively superhero comics. And superheroes are ultimately an immature genre.
Yeah.
It's I'm bigger and I'm more powerful than everybody else, and I'm going to go around making people do the right thing because I can.
And when you take those ideas in a superhero comic and you try to ground them in a reality, like in an adult situation, in a realistic situation, you try to put those superheroes there, DC and Marvel don't want to publish it because it upsets the status quo too much.
Absolutely.
You get books like Watchmen or Absolution or...
Well,
Well, I think that's the point that Alan Moore
Yeah.
was trying to make 30 years ago almost in Watchmen that nobody actually got, which is when you actually try and put superheroes into an adult situation, into a real world,
quote-unquote real world.
they don't work.
Right.
No.
It completely destroys the suspension of disbelief.
And I agree.
And
You
it
can't
that's why
just
Marvel
totally
and,
rips up the genre conventions.
Marvel and DC can't do it, you know? Like,
Well,
it
Right,
would
and,
destroy
so
their
they, and they
universe.
keep
But-
trying to
and they-
tell
yeah.
adult stories.
Right.
They keep trying to
wanting
aim
to.
these superhero stories at 30 and now 40-year-olds,
Right.
people who have been reading their comics since they were 10
Right.
and have never grown out of them.
Yeah, and that's what's killing it. Like Daredevil, when you look at Frank Miller's Daredevil run, it's kept entirely within the context of that character, and so it's much more powerful. He doesn't, he knows exactly what to do. He knows the buttons to hit, and so he manages to tell a really good story that's controlled. When Marvel and DC try to do these things now, it's so blown out of proportion that it loses all meaning. It's like, read Blackest Night. I know I come back to that a lot. I'm looking at it constantly. But like, seriously, look at that. Jeff Johns is just hammering on you. Look at how bad this is. Look at how bad it is. And then like by the second issue, you're like, I don't give a fuck.
Well, of
yeah,
course.
you know that it's going to go back to normal. At the
Yeah,
end.
exactly.
Like, nothing's at stake. It's
Well,
the return of the Jedi. Of
it's
comics.
not even just that it has to go back to normal because they have to maintain the continuity. It's that you constantly have to up the stakes. If
Yeah.
Captain America fights the Red Skull for the 13th, 15th, 20th time, he can't just have the exact same fight again because it's not fulfilling. You have to up the stakes, and they've been
Right.
upping the stakes for 50,
For so
70
long.
years.
Yeah.
And so it's so overblown now
it's
that
nice.
every 6 months they have to have an event where all of reality is in jeopardy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
And it lacks the emotional punch that
it's
it did.
kind of nice the way, I mean, and neither DC or Marvel have ever really done this, but the idea that like you lose your readership every 5 years should mean that you get to retell a similar
Absolutely.
story every 5 years, right? But the way that they look at it is like every 5 years we're just going to do something crazy, but you'll still have to have read the previous 5 years, or like that will cause people to go back and read the previous
Except
5
that
years.
now
you know?
they're doing it every year.
Right.
And the thing is, like, really, I have no problem. You want to do, here's a dated reference. You want to do Deathmate, right? Yeah, do it. Fine.
Right.
Don't do it at the expense of your writing in general.
Your other books.
Yeah, like don't, Bendis has just signed on to do something with Daredevil where he's going to kill Daredevil and it's going to be change the world forever until somebody decides that they really need to bring Daredevil back.
Wow, that is incredibly disappointing. I've been really
it
enjoying Mark Waid's
really
run on
is,
Daredevil.
because-
I felt like he brought Daredevil back to being a hero who actually
Mark-
has heroic adventures.
Because Mark Waid understands the place of the superhero. He
And-
understands what the point of superheroes are.
Oh, and we were talking about the real world situation superheroes. Nobody's writing a better real world situation superhero ongoing right now than Mark Waid with Incorruptible
Or
and
Irredeemable
and
yeah,
Incorruptible.
yeah.
Those two, those are both fantastic.
I really need to read those.
Yeah, I'm not totally current on them, but everything that I've read so far has been fantastic. So
Well, yeah,
I mean, you have to understand superheroes before you can take them apart.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
he's taking them apart in the best possible way. It's
Actually, I think in my opinion, the best possible, realistic superhero story going right now is Invincible.
I do love Invincible.
And I didn't like Invincible for a while because it got really kind of mopey and soap opera-y and meandering. And there reached a point where I realized that what is it? It's not Eric Larson. I always
Kirkman.
Eric Kirkman.
Robert
Kirkman. I always mess up his name. Right. Robert Kirkman. I realized that he was doing the ultimate deconstruction of the superhero, not in the way that Alan Moore or those people did in the mid 80s where they were coming out of the Silver Age, but going, okay, let's actually really look at what superheroes are. And a superhero world that is legitimately a superhero world. We're not removing those genre conventions, but look at what the world would actually be like.
Yeah.
And Invincible hits a point in his superhero career where he's going, I'm not doing good. All I'm doing is fighting bad guys and wrecking up places, and I'm not actually accomplishing anything.
Right.
What do I need to do, and where do I need to go to actually make a positive change in the world that is lasting?
It's also interesting too because he goes through all the tropes that superhero books go through too, you know,
Right.
just to make it familiar to you so that you can keep reading. Like Invincible's had costume changes and event books, and you know all the things that every superhero has gone through, but they don't do it every week.
Yeah.
And you don't get it.
And the character does grow and change. Those events have importance, and they
don't
alter
do it
his
to
world.
sell books either.
Right.
Like that book sells fine.
Yeah.
Like regardless of if they do an event.
Well,
book
and
or
it's
not.
an excellent example of just how solid writing will keep people around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, what did I just finished reading Sandman again, and just was blown away by how at the time that it was being written, you could get away with art that maybe wasn't always entirely pretty. You know, he had a lot of new artists working on it. He had times when he had to change out an artist at the last minute because they had something else to do, because of a deadline. But none of it matters because his writing is so cohesive, and it is every issue is about the story in that issue. And it comes together beautifully at the end. There's just not a lot of writing like that anymore. People are all about this issue's got to lead into this issue, but it's got to lead into the issue that will change the entire universe until it's...
Well, that's always been the problem with Marvel and DC, is that they've always been about the grind, about what is coming out next month that's going to sell a lot of books, and not necessarily about slow storytelling and building something over time.
The hard thing about serialized comics is, like, I don't know that anyone's ever figured out the perfect way to do it. You know, I think that Kirkman does it really well. I think the guys like Larson do it really well, where it's just like, you just keep putting out books.
Right.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
You just keep putting out books. You keep telling the best story you can tell. You do the best art you can do, and you try to keep your readers, you know, interested in the world.
David Sim had the right answer when he it's like, okay, I'm just going to do Cerberus for 30 years. It didn't work out so great for him because he kind of went crazy before he finished.
Jaka's story,
But Jeff Smith did the same thing with Bone. That took him 10 years to write.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think he could have gone another 6 issues and done a better ending, but it was an incredibly good story, told very well. You know, I mean, what did Sandman go for?
70 some odd issues.
70 some odd issues. That was great. And Transmetropolitan went for 60 issues.
Was it? I thought it was 75.
I thought it was less than
What,
that.
Transmet?
Yeah.
No, it was 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was 60 issues. It told an amazing story, and then it was over, and he took the time to do it.
Character.
Yeah.
Right.
But those, arguably, though, those aren't serialized because they have an ending. You know, like the minute you end a book, you no longer have like the serialized comic that you want. I mean, you change writers during, that you change artists during. Like, I agree that those are great stories. Like, they have a beginning, middle, and end, and they're very strong. And that's great. And that's my favorite part about comics. And my favorite part about being a comic fan right now is being able to go back and get trades of all those series and catch up on all the stuff that I missed. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Well, they are serials. I mean, the original serials were in pulps, where they would release one chapter of the book a month. And then at the end of the year, you would
published all of his Musketeer stories in serialized forms.
So when they come out as a monthly issue, and that issue is only part of a story, that is a serial.
Sure,
but I mean, you're talking about like a 20 or 30
You're talking about Spider-Man or Captain America or Superman,
where General Hospital, and
there's an issue this month, and there'll be an issue next month, and there'll be an issue in 10 years, and the story will never end.
Right,
you might have arcs within it, but there is no.
And that's what I'm talking about.
I think maybe 7 years, maybe 10 years is. I mean, if you look at like Ron Marr's run on Green Lantern, when he was introducing Kyle Rayner and bringing Rayner in to be the Green Lantern of the DCU. Look at
Wade on the Flash.
Mark Wade on the Flash, but also what's his name? Gerard Way. I can't. Maybe somebody else, but who told the early Wally West stories. And they were all, once again, it's a cohesive story. They're going somewhere. They're building Wally West into the Flash. Yeah. And it's a great trip to take. And then Jeff Johns gets a hold of it, tells this 12-story arc that ends literally exactly where it begins, with nothing changed. Nothing changed.
We don't have to talk about Flashpoint. That was probably the worst.
We also don't have to talk about Jeff Johns.
That's probably the worst.
Well, you can't talk about. I really think you can't talk about what's wrong with comics without talking about Jeff Johns, because he symbolizes that, oh, Jeff Johns is doing a really good job on Legion, or Jeff Johns is doing a really good job on Green Lantern. Let's put him on all our flagging books.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Jeff Johns, who was taking time and crafting an artful story just on Green Lantern or just on Legion, is writing 3 books. And he doesn't have time anymore.
Well, it's the same with Wolverine, you know, like he was a much more interesting character before he was in every book because people had time to make him into an interesting character. Deadpool too. Yep. Now Deadpool's in every book and no one gives a shit about him because and he's not a good character anymore.
No, because you can't.
At a time, you know, you just and that hurts. Like that hurts a fan of you know, your true fans of that character.
Well, I'm not sure if it's necessarily the overexposure so much as they're not allowing any one writer to really develop that character and give them a specific voice.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force has both Wolverine and Deadpool in it. It's amazing.
Amazing. Because this Remender is an example of what's doing exactly right. He takes the character and he thinks about it. I think this is something that writers should do, right? They should think about the characters they're writing.
But, you know, one of the reasons that Wolverine was good and became popular is because he, of all the X-Men, had his own book with one writer for a really long time, and the character got really well developed, and he had his own separate history where he was doing all of these things and having adventures and fighting ninjas.
Yeah,
and he was Wolverine.
Right, yeah. and they do that now too. But you can't get away with something like that without also putting them in like 100 other books.
Well, yeah, you can't. But Jason Aaron's stuff on Wolverine, I thought was really good. Yeah. I thought it was really true to the kind of Wolverine. He's not the hero with a heart of gold.
Right.
He's really not. He's a fucking dark character. He needs to be in a book where he's killing things and where things are trying to kill him.
That's why Uncanny X-Force works so well.
That's exactly.
You take those down and dirty X-Men characters and you put them somewhere where they actually have a chance to be down and dirty.
And what's really great is that Remender's entire arc has been all about, okay, you are a hero who is willing to kill to complete your objectives.
Right.
What is the result of that? What are the consequences of killing your enemies?
Right.
And also, it kind of makes the other books more interesting.
Kill scenes ever.
Yeah.
Which one are you talking about specifically?
Well, spoiler alert.
Okay, well, no. Is it the first arc?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you have not read it, the first 6 issues are a standalone story that kind of kicks off everything. It's great, and it has an amazing ending where somebody dies horribly.
And in the best possible way. And if you haven't read it, read it down. Do whatever you need to do to get your hands on it because it will hook you like nothing has.
And I'm not sure if it's actually at the end of that story, the beginning of the next, when Deadpool has one of the best lines he has ever uttered, which I will not spoil. You have to go and read it.
I can't remember.
Good.
Yeah,
it's good. I mean, and it also makes the other books more interesting because, like, I don't know, one of the weird things about superhero books is they're like, oh, we don't kill our enemies.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, well, why not? And this book answers that question.
Exactly.
You know, like, it makes that interesting.
This brings me back full circle to a point I was going to make, and I totally forgot, which is that it's not just the fact that you're telling these serialized stories. It's the fact that eventually Batman has to wake up one morning and realize that for the past 20 years, he is responsible for every death that the Joker has caused, that Scarecrow has caused, that Killer Croc has caused, that, because he didn't do anything about it. Eventually, it's, and nobody wants to get in that. Everybody wants to be like, Batman doesn't kill. Oh, I don't kill. But it's like, that's boring. Put him in a situation where he has to. Superman was compelling when that happened. Wonder Woman was compelling when that happened.
And that's also, that's part of the whole thing where it's like DC are beginner comics. You know, you don't get to see the cool stories if you just stick with DC and Marvel all the time. Even in the Elseworlds, maybe, but you don't really get to dig into the grimy, good. And not just like, oh, everything has to be gritty, but just like the good writing that comes from an impossible task or, a hard decision. A decision that Batman's never going to have to make.
Right, and it seems like there are writers out there that want to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
And they constantly get torpedoed by editorial. There was the whole thing around the time of Civil War in Marvel where Reed Richards set up the antimatter universe prison, and they were just sticking people in there. No trial, no release date, just you go to another dimension forever, and we're going to keep you under lock and key.
Yeah.
And then they were like, okay, well, that was bad of him, but nobody's really going to talk about it. There's going to be no fallout from that.
And that's a compelling story,
and it just kind of disappeared down the rabbit hole.
by Mark Miller, of all people, too. This was a really compelling and interesting idea, but they totally went milquetoast on it.
They can't
went
follow
milquetoast. Yeah, they went milquetoast with the final battle between Cap and... think about how blown away you'd been if Cap, instead of being like, I surrender, we're hurting the people... fucking bashed in Tony Stark's brains.
Or vice versa. You know, Cap dies right after that.
Yeah, I know.
Why?
Dies. I'm making air quotes.
Air quotes, dies.
Well,
But Cap,
in
the
their
death of
defense,
Captain
he was dead for what, 3 years?
Yeah, Captain America dies right after that. You know, why did it have to be some unnamed whatever, like, for a long time? Or, you know, why couldn't it have been Fallout from Civil War? Why did the Punisher not end him? Or, I mean, obviously the Punisher was on Cap's side, so that wouldn't have worked. But, you know, why didn't someone kill him to end Civil War?
Right. And even coming out of Civil War, Tony Stark was on the outs with a lot of heroes for a number of years.
Yeah.
And rather than dealing with that or have him do something to make up for it, they're like, okay, well, he wiped his own brain and
yeah,
you know, copied from a backup before that ever happened. So he's totally not responsible for having done it. And everybody is just going to forgive him and forget about it.
Yeah.
And we're going to move on.
Forget about it comics. That's, you know, that's Marvel and DC's bread and butter.
Oh, totally.
Hit the reset button and we will get out of that problem.
That was that was like Wolverine's whole life for years.
Yeah.
It was memory implants. It was a false memory. People were like, oh, they're telling Wolverine's origin. You know, a few years ago when they finally came out.
It was after House of M.
Origin.
Yeah,
it was
I'm like, oh, this will only be the 8th, 9th time they've done it. Like, I remember when Barry Windsor Smith did it back in the mid 80s, late 80s, or whatever.
Although the most recent one has actually stuck around for a while.
It has.
You know, it has had some good consequences.
And it served to make him more compelling because, you know, the mysterious doesn't have a background. It doesn't work. It's like
it works. It works for a while.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
It also is that, you know, it's like that dark, mysterious character. Like, where is he from?
That's the whole thing.
You want to learn more.
Right.
If there's nothing more to learn about that character, you'll get tired.
Well, it's not even that there's nothing more to learn. There's plenty more to learn. But if that is the motivation of your character, is learning their dark and mysterious past, you can't show his dark and mysterious past and go, nope, we're going to do that one again. That wasn't his real mysterious past. He's got a different mysterious past. Ooh, you want to find out.
And pastor.
After 2 or 3 times of finding out someone's dark and mysterious past, you stop to care.
Those are my favorite retcons when they're just like, wait, ignore that one.
Yeah.
Let's start over. Just blatantly.
Well, you know what Wolverine's real dark and mysterious past was at the very beginning? Is that he was actually a Wolverine. He was an anthropomorphic Wolverine that
just
the High Evolutionary had turned into a person.
Oh, God.
Spreads TB
we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
Well, no, nobody wants to talk about that origin because that origin is stupid. But he's had how many of them?
I know, a lot.
15.
The best one was the Superman that they keep doing. We got like 3 Superman origin stories in the last 3 years. We had Birthright. We had
Birthright was good.
Birthright, I love Birthright.
I
picked that for one of my books earlier.
Yeah, you had John Byrne to the Man of Steel, which you know, and
awesome.
in a big way, it's great, right?
Awesome.
John Byrne
go get those 6 trades.
Very similar things to what Frank Miller was doing with Batman, really trying to bring Superman into a modern context and make him compelling, and he did. He did a great job.
For everyone that doesn't like Superman,
John Byrne's Man of Steel is great.
That's what made me love Superman.
And then read All-Star Superman, because if you have it, you're a bad person.
But that has my single favorite issue of any comic ever written in it, which is the Batman Superman special, where Batman is... I'll have to find this and do a special edition.
Is that the one where they dress up like Santa Claus?
No, it's the one where they go to like a small town and there are vampires. And it has just so many great Batman Superman interactions in it that you just like, it's so great. I'll bring it up.
Remember that.
I'll bring it up later. It's so good, but it's in like, I don't know, volume 4 of that series. But there's like 6 trades of the John Byrne Man of Steel Superman. Go read those.
And they're excellent. And his Man of Steel miniseries, which is excellent.
Yeah, and then you had those are in those 6 trades.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're in there. And then
you had
Birthright.
Mark Waid doing a great job with Superman.
Yeah, you had Secret Origin Superman.
I haven't read that.
Yeah, me either.
If it come out in the last,
but it was good. I haven't read it, but it was very, very good.
My reaction to the last, to most comics coming out recently is just to kind of facepalm and pretend like I didn't hear what I just heard.
And then they did Year One or Earth One, which is alternate. This is an Elseworlds.
We don't talk
ongoing,
about that.
But actually,
wasn't that the one with the clown aliens?
No,
I'm pretty sure it was.
Was it?
I think so.
Were they clown aliens?
Well, they had like clown-like makeup.
Oh, I don't remember that. I remember.
I don't know what J. Michael Straczynski was thinking.
I read it and thought it was okay. The Earth One books are like, That's how I feel after I read them. They're okay. They're not the best origin stories of those characters. They're not good characters to pick to relaunch. Like, everybody knows Batman's origin already. We just watched a huge movie trilogy. Everybody knows Superman's origin already. These are things we know. Like, that's not... If you want to get new people interested in comics, don't tell them a story they've already told, and then tell it in a different way that it doesn't make sense to them, where you've changed all the characters into different characters. Yeah. Like, it's probably not the best way to get new people in the comics, because they're going to read it and they go, this isn't Batman Begins. Yeah, no fucking shit, it's not. Like, tell a story that no one's ever heard of. Like, where's the Wildcat story? Where's the... where are these obscure characters that, like, comic fans know and love because they're great characters, but... your average Joe on the street just saw Dark Knight, wants to get into comics, has no idea about.
I want to see a story.
Like Starman. Read Starman.
I want to see a one-shot where it's Power Girl sitting down with her tailor trying to find a new costume, and she keeps having to leave to, like, because weird shit keeps happening. And at the end, she totally has forgotten that she's supposed to be doing this. Like, something like that. I would like to see that. But because it's a pointless story, but that's what comic books should be. Yeah, there should be more pointless stories and less things that change the status quo, because it's all bullshit.
Wednesday Comics, right? Wednesday Comics, the book that came out where they did DC's experiment for trades. That was great because it was just like those fun style of comics that we like, where it's just like
it's like newspaper
stories that we love that are fun to read.
I think one of my favorite moments out of all the comic books I've read, I've got shelves of them, is there's this moment in All-Star Superman where this girl's getting ready to jump off of a building, and her therapist has been delayed by a bomb in the subway that Superman has just saved, right? And she gets ready to jump, and there's a panel where you see a hand on her shoulder, and she turns around and Superman is there, and he just gives her a hug, right? He's not doing anything amazing. He's not lifting a train. He's not flying an oil tanker into space. He just gives this girl a hug, and it gave me goosebumps. It was such an amazing and powerful that is
the pinnacle of Superman as Jesus. Because literally, he turns to her and says, you're stronger than you think.
Yeah.
He is the voice on her, shoulder saying, you can do it. It's okay.
Yeah. But it's great.
And Superman has never been Jesus more than in that moment. And it works.
It does.
Because Superman is a messianic character. That's what he is.
Absolutely.
That being said, the best Superman stories are still the ones where he punches giant robots. And I don't care what anybody else says. He needs to be punching more of them.
Giant robots.
Why have we not seen a movie where Superman punches a giant robot?
And he does punch a lot of things in All-Star Superman.
He does.
But in case you're worried, there is punching that happens.
Yeah. John Byrne puts a lot of robots into his Man of Steel stories, and it's awesome. Why it's great.
What is the
centipedes and stuff?
The movie where the army? It's the animated
Iron Giant.
The Joe
Small Soldiers.
The old Fleischer series.
Small Soldiers.
No, it's
the one with the flying robot.
Warner Brothers. It's the more recent Warner Brothers cartoon. It's the Justice League. They're fighting an army of doomsdays, and Superman's just like, he's had enough. He's been fighting for a little bit. They're basically getting their asses kicked. And he's just like, everybody clear out. And he just flies up and he just like uses his laser vision and he kills all of them. He just cuts a swath of destruction through them.
Isn't that in Unlimited? Is it in the show?
I don't think it's in Unlimited. No, it was in a movie.
It's not in Justice League. It's got to be one of the DVDs.
Maybe it's the one.
Is that Superman, Batman, Doomsday?
Maybe it is.
That would make sense if they were fighting Doomsdays.
It would. I can't remember. I'm not sure. Batman's got a great line in it too. He makes a great funny, and Batman funnies are the best funnies because they're...
Well, that's because Batman has trained to be the best at everything.
Absolutely, yeah. He trained...
Including Bon Mots.
Yeah. This is true. This is true. In fact, he was going to be Bon Mot Man, but it didn't roll off the tongue in the same way.
It's close.
Well, that's his name in France.
That is. It's true. The French Superman is Bon Mot.
That's the French Batman too.
Yeah. Whatever.
That's terrible.
I'm awful. Move on to the next thing.
Robots.
Robot. Superman should punch more robots.
He punches more. He needs much more robots.
I'm gonna say that every superhero should punch more. I mean, just Wonder Woman should punch more giant statues from Greek mythology.
Yeah, like
Superman should punch more robots. Batman needs to be swinging through Gotham City more and bitching about everything, literally everything less. Yeah.
There's that scene in Venture Brothers at the end of the first season where there's a giant statue attacking Hank and Dean before they form Mecha Shiva, and Brock runs into the room dressed as Knight Rider and breaks his arm off and then starts punching him in his own groin with his own statue arm. Where is that in comics? I want more of that. If Wonder Woman ever did that to a statue, Wonder Woman would be my favorite character ever.
I think
but she has not.
Yeah, I think that's why the Venture Brothers is amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, watch that. It's so good. That was in the first season. It's a good one.
Are you sure that's in the first season?
It's absolutely. It's the Trial of the Monarch Part 2 or Part 1 maybe.
No, that's the end of season 2.
No, season 1 ends with Trial of the Monarch.
Yeah, you're right because season 2 begins with him in jail.
Him in jail.
Right.
Which has my favorite Monarch
Because
line
I know
of all
these
time.
things.
Favorite Monarch line of all time is when he's doing this scared straight speech and he's in the jail trying to get all the kids and he's like, "You think you're hot shit in a champagne glass? Well, you're not. You're cold diarrhea in a Dixie cup." Best Monarch line of all time.
The best scared straight scene is from Home Movies.
Oh, yeah.
The episode "It's Time to Pay the Price," where you find out that they're in a... I won't spoil it for you. Just watch the episode because it's great. I don't think I've ever heard the words "I was in a gang" so many times used in such a short period. It's great.
Yeah, Home Movies is where it's at.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is.
Where it's at.
Animation, American animation, disappoints me a hell of a lot less than American comic books do.
That's
We'll
true.
say that. We'll say that.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that there are not good American comic books.
No, there absolutely
But you
are.
have to look at the indie scene.
Yeah,
you have
you
to.
do.
There's no
I think
other
that's the
way.
moral of the story. This episode.
The moral is that if you read Marvel or DC and you like them, you should feel bad.
You're a child.
You should feel
No.
bad. And what you should do is you should stop buying them. And you should go into the smaller of whatever comic stores around and go, give me the thing that gets bought the least. And you should probably not buy that
That'll
because
be
nobody
Marvel.
likes that.
That'll be
It's
Marvel
stupid.
and Batman. That'll be Marvel and DC right there.
Read something good. Read something like the books we're probably about to discuss.
That being said, though, the new Batman in the 52 reboot, the Court of Owls, fantastic.
I've
Read
heard
that.
Scott Snyder.
That's what everybody
It's so
says.
good.
It's
so
been
good. One of
And
my favorite Batman stories.
I do want to give DC credit. The Catwoman Zero controversy. DC changed the cover. They made it a little bit more realistic.
They gave her an actual torso.
They gave her an actual
she did it like
torso.
it was just tits and then ass immediately following that.
yeah.
And nothing in between.
You
them.
can see both of her feet.
She
got
actually has a
torso.
spine.
She actually has a spine. She has a torso. Her ass is normal sized. She is zipped up, so her tits are not hanging out.
That sounds terrible.
And,
That's about the best I could possibly expect from
I
DC.
really
at this
do
point.
think so. They listen. They listen. Although I wish
sounds-
they had gone with the Robert Crumb parody version, which you should definitely check out if you haven't seen, because it's hilarious.
Then I need to check that out.
That
'cause
sounds
I have not seen
horrible.
that.
I think
No,
that-
that's what's great about it.
No,
it's
I
the
think
same
that-
cover, but done in the style of Robert Crumb.
No, I mean that they changed it. I think that's what female comic readers want is more women being objectified.
Well, we know that.
And
but,
fridged.
Especially
Mostly
when
fridge.
Well,
they're
if we could
objectified
somehow
as
fridge
objects
objectify
that
them.
can't actually exist.
Fridge
we
objectification, I
fridge
think, is what
objectify
we're
a
looking
woman?
for here. So what we'd like them is we'd like their tits and asses stuck. We'd like their tits and asses killed to progress the story of male heroes.
I think
Yes,
really what we're
that's
looking for
fine.
is non-Euclidean women.
Non-Euclid. Well, but then you get into like all kinds of weird Poincaré.
Please don't talk about math. Please don't talk about math. Please don't talk about math. Please don't talk about
Poincaré
math.
boobs,
Please don't talk
which
about
are
math.
weird.
Please don't talk about
because-
math. Please don't talk about math.
Anyways, and now to the hypotenuse.
God damn it. Can we pick a book now?
We're gonna pick a book. I once again forgot to. I hurried out of my house, but
Fuck, Joe.
the book I pick is going to win.
Is it?
Yeah,
Is it?
because it's
Well, now I'm not
Is
going
it
to
gonna
vote
be a
for
math
it just
book?
because of that.
no. The thing is, I don't know if it'll win.
Is there
I
going to
hope
be math in it?
No, there's no math. There's only awesome. This is a book that contains only awesome.
Tell me about
But-
this awesome book.
Do you want?
Yeah,
me to
go
you want
first.
me to go first?
Yeah, go
okay.
first.
Well, in celebration of Community, which is getting ready to come back on. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Pretty soon, and
September.
October, actually.
October?
I just
Okay.
because
It is September now. October.
It is about
and
5
because
weeks.
Dan Harmon will no longer be with us in that, which I think deserves a moment of silence later. Scud, the Disposable Assassin, the whole shebang,
Yeah.
which is amazing cover to cover.
It is actually
really,
incredibly
really good.
great.
Rob Schrey, Dan Harmon.
Dead Alewives, both.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the great. The best thing I've ever read is Transmet. Scud comes in right underneath it. So
Yeah, it's good. I think we've all read it.
I've definitely read it.
Yeah,
I definitely enjoyed it.
yeah.
It's really good.
So even if we don't read it, you should go out and grab it.
Absolutely.
The trade is incredibly reasonably priced. It's like
And you get everything.
Yeah, you get
everything
the whole thing,
Scud
and a bunch
ever.
of
And you don't have to wait 10 years
you
for
don't
it to
have to wait
finish.
10 years, and there's a character named Susudio.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's if that doesn't sell you, then you're awful.
And just like every month, 2 weeks, week, year that we put this podcast out, even if we don't pick that book, you should read all of them.
Absolutely.
It's only like 3 or 4 a week, year / year.
But we are in an alternate dimension.
The weeks
time,
feel
we're
like
still in
years.
It has actually only been, I mean, this is 8, so it's only been 16 weeks since we started. It'll feel a lot longer than that. To you, it's 16 weeks because we are magical
To
beings.
you, it's like 8 hours. You haven't
Yeah.
stopped listening.
You haven't.
It's so good that you can't stop. The first issue hooked you, and you didn't even take time to read the books. Shame on you.
And the trick is that if you listen to the whole thing and then go back to the beginning, it's different.
It really is.
It's mostly the same, but some bits are different, so you should definitely listen to the entire thing again to find those parts.
I don't think we make...
We're matching pants and handkerchief, or matching handkerchief and jacket. The Monty Python album, had 2 grooves on one side. They released it with 2 grooves so that you could play it and listen to one thing one time, and then you'd play it for your friends and hear something completely different the second time. Best practical joke ever.
That is pretty good.
That actually is, that's awesome.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
So
Power
Scud,
of phonographs.
Yeah, right?
Scud,
So it's got the disposable assassin, the whole shebang. It's I think it's like $30. I really do. Image is
It's
fucking amazing.
it's a phone
huge,
book.
too.
It
It
is.
is a phone book.
It really is.
And it's got one of my favorite characters, I think, ever, Drywall.
Yeah.
Fucking Drywall, man. He's a great character. It's got some of the most amazing characters designs I have ever seen, if not the best. I just at one point there's a guy with he's got an elephant's head. His head is on the end. His body is coming off of the cybernetic trunk of the elephant, and his fingers are fishing rods. If you can imagine that. No, you can't. Go and pick up the book and read it.
It reminds me actually a lot of The Tick in a certain way.
It is.
Well, and Venture Brothers too. It's like that Ben Edlund, kind of idea where it's just
they're drawn from the same well.
Yeah, absolutely. Where it's that kind of instead of taking superheroes to that place we were talking about earlier, where we take them to a very adult, very realistic world, it's like the complete opposite. Where it's like let's take them to the most extremely awesome place we can possibly imagine. If you were 12 years old and you wrote a comic where you created superheroes, like how badass could you make it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's fantastic.
And there's parody there too. There's some great parody
and
there.
It's love.
Yeah,
it's love,
it's absolutely.
It's not just like parody for parody's sake and just as we hate comic books the way that a lot of deconstructionist superhero books are now. It's more of the vein of like we love comics, we love superheroes. Yeah. This is the story we're gonna tell.
And we love these characters and we love this story.
Yeah.
And if you've ever watched Community and enjoyed it, I think you'll definitely like.
Oh, the humor is simple. Yeah. And it's that level of brilliance too, where they're setting up jokes and they're setting up things, before you'll get the setup to something, a whole section before it actually pays off. It's good stuff.
And that's another book that holds up really well to multiple readings.
Absolutely.
Because you continue to pick up new stuff.
And it's really easy when the project is that big for the ending to kind of fall on its ass, but it doesn't. It delivers.
Well, it took a long time to come out.
Oh, yeah.
It really does,
The ending, I think that last issue it was like planetary. But,
it's always that last issue, isn't it?
But it's good, so it's worth it.
Totally.
And now you don't have to wait.
Yeah, no, you don't. It's all together. Go and read it. Go read it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chard.
Yeah, I'll do
Tell me
mine.
what you want to read.
Okay. I picked a book from Joe Kelly and Max Fiumara. It's part of the Men of Action Studios stuff. It's published by Image Comics. It's called Four Eyes. It's 4 issues. It's book 1 of a series. The rest of the series has not come out yet, but the 4 issues are fantastic. It's basically set in a Victorian era where dragons are real. It's not steampunk. It's just like straight up, this is what things looked like historically. There just happens to be dragons. Like, no explanation needed. There are just also dragons. And
now, are these dragons a new thing, or have there just always been dragons?
Always have been dragons. And there's the kid, the protagonist of the story, the main kid, his father is a dragon hunter and goes and captures the dragons and resells them to the mob, basically, and they use them for underground dragon fight champion gambling arenas. And it's pretty awesome. And very early on in the story, some bad stuff happens, and the kid is now kind of put in this very messed up world of dragon smuggling, mobsters. His mom is trying to take care of the family and hold everything together. They don't have a lot of money. They're kind of like a poor immigrant family living in America at around the turn of the century. I guess it's not Victorian. Sorry, when I said Victorian. I think it takes place.
No, it's...
Well, if it's around the turn of the century, that's late Victorian.
Yeah.
So I believe it's early turn of the century. Not quite to... I don't know, it's been a couple years since I've read this, but not quite to the, like, roaring 20s yet. You know, we're still in that, like, early America's kind of deal.
Right.
And art's really good. I really like the art. The action's really intense. I mean, there are dragons, which is nice. It's a good kind of heartwarming family story.
Are they smart dragons, or are they like animal dragons?
They are just, so far in the story, they are just animal dragons.
Okay.
They are just pretty vicious animals. And
sounds uplifting.
There's more going on with the dragons than just that base level, but we're not sure what that is yet.
Right.
There's kind of a mystery going on there, and it's fantastic. It's really good. It's excellent. And
I love me some Joe Kelly. I mean,
read Joe Kelly stuff. It's all good.
That's Deadpool. I love his Deadpool stuff.
Yeah. We talked about I Kill Giants earlier.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite thing that he's done.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It follows that up where it's, he tells good character story. He knows how to make characters interesting and deep, and you feel emotionally interested in those characters.
Right.
So that's definitely a good Joe Kelly trait.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
Awesome.
It's really good. I really enjoy this book a lot.
Right.
You guys should check it out. It's short too. It's just 4 issues.
Dragons are cool.
Gotta love dragons. Gotta love mobsters, and dragon fighting, gambling.
Dragon. Yeah. I mean, as an Italian, I'm very into dragons, mafia, and underground fighting.
Yeah, it's good.
Sometimes
all three at the same time.
Mostly.
I mean, my.
Well, if there's one thing I can say definitively, if you take any 3 things and put them together, they are as good as all 3 of those things together.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
There's definitely no effect where that would somehow become bad.
No. It's not like.
How could that possibly be?
Not like fruitcake,
Yeah.
That's
or like
perfect.
A large pizza, your girlfriend and 2 girls 1 cup, which would be awful.
Well,
amazing.
Yeah.
You meant amazing, right?
I meant amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I mean, who doesn't like the Shiza porn,
Yeah.
I mean,
looks like ice cream.
it does. I'm pretty convinced it might be, actually.
I think that a lot of people think that's fake. So
I think we should end this line of conversation immediately.
Yes, we're moving on.
In fact, actually, we need to go back in time and end this line of conversation about a minute ago. Instead, let's talk about my pick for this week. It's actually my favorite comic from this year.
Really?
Just actually, the first 6 issues have been collected in one volume as of, I think, last week. Wow. It's the relaunch of Prophet by Brandon Graham and Simon Roy. You might remember we were talking about Brandon Graham last week with King City.
Yep.
Did you bring that last week?
I think it was the book I recommended.
It was.
I think you should just keep
and
recommending
you should definitely read that.
I agree.
I'm going to read that anyway. But...
Well, you're going to have to recommend it again because I want to read it again.
Yeah.
All right.
So Prophet was a Rob Liefeld comic from back in the 90s. It was terrible.
It was one of the
Image launch titles, I think.
Was it Wild?
No, it wasn't a launch title. It came out after. I mean, it was well into
was it?
Images.
Was it
well,
Image?
Well into.
Was it Wild?
I think it may have been a wild story.
I
In
think
any
it was
case, if you know anything about Rob
Wildstorm,
Liefeld, you can probably guess what the comic is about. It's about
Pouches.
a man with big muscles and big shoulder
Pouches.
pads and big guns going and killing people horribly.
Bendy guns.
Bendy guns, everybody.
And people with no feet.
A bendy gun
Or
is the best
ankles.
kind of gun. You can shoot around corners.
People with no feet, no ankles.
And
You
the
can see
premise
their front
was
and their
that
back
he was
at the
this
same
guy. They
time.
held him in cryogenic storage. They would wake him up periodically, and he would go and murder people horribly. It ended a number of years ago, as well it should have. And it was just recently relaunched, now under the control of Brandon Graham and Simon Roy. Totally different art style. And it begins with Prophet, John Prophet, waking up millions of years in the future. Mankind is dead. The earth is ruled by lizard men and giant insect creatures and all kinds of crazy bullshit.
All the stuff I love.
And it's basically John Prophet trying to survive in this world and complete whatever his objective is. He doesn't really know what his objective is, just that he has this compulsion to go and complete this job.
Right.
And it is just crazy. I mean, if you like old school science fiction, none of the like laser guns and spaceships and Star Trek, it's not that. It's Earth, but it is a truly alien world. Any evidence of mankind is long since gone. And this is one man struggling to exist in this world. And it is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's different, I think, from everything else on the market right now. There is nothing else like this comic that exists.
And Brandon Graham is kind of blows my mind a little bit. I think he's great.
And
So I've been really interested in reading it. I love the art too.
the art is amazing. Simon Roy draws the first 3 issues. Brandon Graham draws one of them. I
It's
think
so
number 5.
clean for a real like intense sci-fi story.
Yeah.
That like the idea, like I don't know, I guess traditionally or even historically has been to just, it's a gritty future story. Let's make the art super gritty. And this is, kind of the opposite of that, where it's like everything is very cleanly drawn and very interesting. And
Exactly.
it really draws you in with the art.
It does.
That's why I picked it up.
There's a big manga influence in it too that you can see. From both Brandon Graham and Simon Roy.
Yeah.
In
In the best possible way.
Yeah, not just in the style that it's drawn, but on every level. The layout of the panels, the way that the story is told. There's long sections in this comic where there is no dialogue whatsoever. There are narration boxes occasionally, but there are even sections where it's just page after page of John Prophet experiencing this world.
Yeah. Speaking of manga, I don't remember if I brought this up last week, but I should have or last month. I should have if I didn't. I finished reading Akira, the manga Akira, all 6 volumes of that. Go pick that up. If you like the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, like it is unbelievably good.
If you have seen the movie and you haven't seen it recently, you should still go check it out because the older dubs, the story makes no goddamn sense. And with the newer translations that they did, maybe about, I want to say 10 years ago, they
more
really
faithful.
cleaned it up.
Yeah.
You can actually figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it's
and
a
from
lot
what I
more
understand,
faithful.
the manga is even better than that.
Yeah, the manga is a completely different story than the movie. It's still directed and written by the same, by Otomo, by the same guy. But he wrote a condensed story for the film instead of trying to make all 6 volumes into it. It's basically an adaptation of the first 3 volumes of the manga with a different ending. And after the 3rd volume of the manga, it's basically a completely different story because there are characters in those 3 volumes that are never introduced in the movie and are very interesting, including the name of the series, Akira.
Right.
Yeah.
He actually shows up in the manga. That is mind blowing.
Yeah, and so it's like a huge change from the movie. So it's definitely it's a fantastic series, and it has that kind of thing where you'll go 6-7 pages without reading a single line of dialogue, no caption bubbles, no dialogue, just action, or just moving through the world. This is the movement of those characters, and that's kind of the manga influence that I think, gets pulled over into Western comics a lot. Where
Yeah, if I can pull this conversation back to what we were talking about earlier for just
Yeah.
a second, that is, I think, another major difference between what's being done in indie comics and what's being done outside the United States and what you get from Marvel and DC. They never take the time to just let you experience the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Something you'll find a lot in manga is that there'll just be a page or pages of just the characters moving through the world and letting you figure out what's going on through observation.
Well, just
how
time,
they move.
just the passage of time,
Right.
too.
Well, look at God, who was it? Was it Peter Milligan and Mike Allred that did Ecstatics? There's an episode probably about midway through that run. It's Peter Milligan, right? There's an issue about somewhere like in the middle of the run. There's no words. No words. It's a dupe based story, and
Yeah, that's the Marvel Enough Said that they do every once
Right,
in a while.
Yeah,
which is a total ripoff, or not a ripoff, but it's them fundamentally misunderstanding why that's a good thing.
Right.
right. But when you get two incredibly talented people like Peter Milligan and Mike Allred together,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing because you have to you cannot read that story and get anything from it unless you are putting yourself into it. And it's just not done anymore. It's like everything is out there and everything. It's like the verbal equivalent of a splash page. That's how people write now.
Right.
And so when somebody comes along and does something really neat, or uses like a manga influence where they're letting the visuals tell the story, not in a splash page, not in a big action scene that means nothing.
This is a guy walking.
But just in
you can tell that time is passing because they show you 5 panels of a guy walking, with a different background.
just taking in.
You get to, as a reader, kind of breathe at that moment, and it's something that's really important when you're telling a big, dense action story. You need minutes to breathe.
It's negative space within the comic.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't
that's
be
very important.
It shouldn't be the month off while you're waiting for the next issue. Should not be the time you take to breathe. It should be contained within the issue.
Yeah. There's a series of panels in Transmet. I can't remember the volume or the issue number, but Spider comes home, and he comes into his apartment. It's where he's living in the really posh apartment, and it's right after Vita Severin gets killed.
Thanks for spoiling that.
You know what? It's been out for how long now? Spoiler warning.
Came out, I think, 2001. So you had 11 years to find it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Too late.
We're gonna put a
he
spoiler
goes out
warning
on the
on it.
balcony and he just collapses against this wall and he takes his glasses off and he just starts weeping. And there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful. It's one of the most powerful moments in the whole thing. It's like, I mean, you don't need dialogue to tell a compelling story. You don't need, you can let the art tell the story. You can let what's going on in the story carry the story along. So yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, so definitely read Akira.
And
Good stuff in there.
Transmetropolitan.
And Transmet. And
Yes.
Even though that we've spoiled both of those for you.
No. I mean,
you can burn your copies now. We
yeah,
told
I mean,
you
I
what
think
happened.
spoiling Transmet would be to tell him that at the end he's Superman. Oh shit, I just ruined that.
Yeah. Damn, Joe.
He has to go to Mordor. That's my standard spoiler warning. He's dead, and he's a woman. He's really a man, and he's Kaiser Soze.
Spider Jerusalem would have killed Dumbledore if he could have.
They were all already werewolves. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
So
Prophet sounds awesome. I remember flipping through the beginning of it when it started coming out in single issues because I was like, Prophet, there's no way they're bringing this back. And then you open it up and it was like, this is a very different animal than it used to be. I think I want to read that.
I think we should go outside the box, and I think we should all vote for King City. I'll read Prophet either way.
I definitely will vote for King City in the future.
Bring it again.
Okay, all right.
There's no rules against bringing it more than
I'll
once.
bring it again then. So I'll say
I think
Prophet.
I've forgotten everything I picked. And so I'm going to end up repeating myself a lot.
Well, I'll just make it unanimous and also vote for me.
Yay.
I mean, for Prophet.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, I remember flipping through it. It's fantastic. Definitely read Scud. Check out Four Eyes. Four Eyes is awesome. If you've never heard of Joe Kelly or any of the Man of Action teams, they're the guys that created Ben 10.
Nice.
which is weird because, Ben 10 kids show or whatever, but they make
I
some...
don't know, but it's interesting.
I believe that they've publicly admitted that Ben 10 is a reskin of Dial H for Hero.
Yeah.
That's what it
there
is.
There you go.
And
I'm sorry if I spoiled that for you.
Oh,
yeah,
ruined forever.
Men of Action. They write some kick-ass comics.
No.
There is some really good stuff. Joe Casey is also part of that.
Nice.
Is that who's doing Butcher Baker, the Righteous Maker? Is that?
I'm not sure.
Joe Casey?
I'm not
I
sure.
think it is. That looks so interesting. I need to pick that up.
Read Joe Kelly stuff on Deadpool.
Yeah.
His run on Deadpool is pretty much without fail excellent.
It's basically seminal.
He
He reinvented the character of Deadpool.
He took it away from Rob Liefeld, who never drew his feet and made him boring and stupid.
Or wrists.
And if you've ever read a comic book and you've seen Deadpool looking at you, saying something, and then have somebody else in the scene with him go, "Who are you talking to?" That is Joe Kelly.
Yeah.
That is Joe Kelly's influence on Deadpool.
Yes, check out those books. And Uncanny X-Force. Read
Yes,
those. Actually, just read everything that Remender has ever
Read
written.
everything that Remender has ever done. And if you're
Fear
into
Agent.
Wolverine, check out Jason Aaron's run on Wolverine, because I think it's gritty and good, and in the good way. It's not gritty in the way that everything wants to be, but it's good and it's hard hitting.
Also, just Jason Aaron in general.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Some
I
good
think
stuff there.
I think he's good.
Scalped and
Oh yeah, Scalp is good.
his Ghost Rider stuff with Tony Moore
Really?
was really cool.
They're
They're Ghost Rider truck drivers in that one.
Nice, nice. Oh damn.
Well, definitely the more Ghost Riders you have in the story, the better it is.
They're
Really?
the ones that
It's an
added
exponential thing.
more
they added a
more
shit
is
ton of
better
Ghost
always
Riders.
when
Yeah.
it comes to Ghost Riders.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody else is going to argue that.
All right.
All right. Well, that's us signing off then, I guess.
Is that our sign off?
I think is that
That
us
was
signing
it?
off?
I think we signed off.
I think we're signing off.
All right, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cue
Stop
end
listening.
music.
Wait,
Cue-
moment of silence.